Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the Rapport with the Sailing podcast. I am your host, Holden Mitty. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to go ahead and plug this really quick because I enjoy podcasting, even though I'm not great at it. I will get better, and it's something that I think is beneficial not just for me, but for the listener and anybody who this might reach in the future. So please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with somebody that you think might benefit from it. I would be ever so grateful if you did all those things, and so that you are notified. Please ring the notification bell so that you are notified when I put out episodes in the future. I've been speaking with a few of my friends, and pretty soon it won't just be a talking head. I will be having conversations with people who I am very much inspired by, and who help me digest and metabolize a lot of these topics. And thank you so much for doing all those things, and I love and appreciate all of you. So let's go ahead and dive in. This second episode here is an expansion of episode number 1, basically answering the question a little bit further, how I use my suffering to tap into joy. I can't help but think back on my own experiences, especially as a child, and how it's molded me into an adult. The things that I've experienced as a grown man, I know are all a result of experiences I've had as a child and as a younger adult. So I've taken some notes. Pardon me if I look down at them. I think all these points are important to express. So without any further ado, here we go. When I think about my suffering, my logical mind knows darn well that it's a result of my obsession with the pursuit of happiness. As a child, I experienced every form of abuse one can live through, from physical to mental. I was beat, manipulated, and abandoned. I was programmed to believe that love was earned and ultimately used as an incentive to stay in line. Regrettably, I became a father, and I had no idea what unconditional love felt like until I became one. And I think this is the number one reason why I ruined my marriage and why it ultimately failed. I still to this day feel very much unlikable and very much unlovable, ultimately undeserving of joy. It's something I battle constantly. When I feel joy approaching, I'm triggered and I run far and fast because it's always been ripped from me, whether it be by the people who were supposed to be my caretakers at a young age, or by myself, because of decisions I've made. And like I said before, it's all rooted in my youth and the example set by the people who raised me. I don't believe I've suffered any more or less than anyone else in this world. I don't think I've suffered any differently, really, but I'm confident that because until recently I've suffered at maximum because of my lack of awareness, my lack of coping skills, and above all else, my selfish and lack of empathy towards others. I believe a lot of my suffering is a result of just not having the experience of acceptance and there's only so much of that experience that you can blame on the people who raised you. At a certain point, you become a grown person, and you should become empathetic and aware of the choices that you're making and the results of those choices. So a lot of it's been childish. Like I said, as a child, I suffered at the hands of the people who were supposed to protect me. I was programmed in a way that when I became an adult, I started to repeat those patterns and never saw myself as the problem, which is why I think I know I've suffered so much. And I go on in my notes. There are two sides to this coin. I couldn't control my environment as a child, so my suffering was a sentence, really. But as an adult, I had free will and a choice to choose to see life in a very different way. Because of my absolute depressed state, I was morbidly obese as a child and well into my 20s. I was raised to understand that friendships and relationships were easily taken as they were made. My view of relationships was extremely warped. Admittedly, I am still terrified of letting anyone close to me because I've never experienced a relationship that's lasted. And I know that this is me. I know that you have to really work for successful relationships. I've failed at darn near every single one I've ever had in my life. And the ones that have lasted are because the people who have stayed are so gracious and beautiful that they understand who I am. And I think that I've kept them at such a distance that that it's sustainable. It's not a great feeling. I'm aware of it, and it tortures me. It's not something I'm proud of. And I hope that throughout my life that I'm able to change that and find people who understand that that's something I'm working for or working through. My motives for self-improvement have always been warped as well, regrettably. Like when I lost weight, it was because I wanted to be accepted. I felt gross. I'm a little bit overweight right now, and I feel disgusting. I don't put myself out there for friendships or to date because I don't feel deserving. Like when I initially began to lose weight, it was because of health, but it was ultimately because I wanted people to see me different. I became obsessed, and instead of gaining compassion, I became judgmental on the inside. It didn't look that way from the outside, but if you weren't doing the work that I was doing to become healthy, you were a disgusting pig. And it's a projection of how I felt about myself. Because trust me, I know a disgusting pig. And that is how I feel about myself. I know it's not a great way to see yourself. I try not to. But that is an admission and a factor of my suffering. And this is not a pity party. It's all building up to my point here on how I tap into my joy. I'm a logical person. The abused child inside of me knows that that pain feels very specific. I know the terror one can feel, but the unfortunate reality of knowing what pain feels like is that you're also capable of inflicting it. Probably more capable than most. On yourself, definitely. On others, definitely. And this is a slippery slope because I know that all of you have heard the saying, hurt people hurt people. So suffering compounds itself into more suffering. And you could either continue to do this and find yourself completely alone. And I've been in places in my life where I'm just like, I'm good with being alone. I've actually sat in the therapist chair and lied to the therapist and myself that I'm good living a life just me. But deep inside, especially me personally as an artist, I want people in my life. I want a community. I want joy. So in the quiet, dark moments, I find myself, and I have found myself asking, how do I change this? Because like I said before, suffering causes more suffering. You feel like garbage and without value. How do you feel at all like you deserve any type of joy when you've lived a life of constant pain and misery and suffering? How does any of this make sense? I feel I've been given so many opportunities in my life to wake up. For example, I was married to a very patient and forgiving person who I truly believe loved me. And eventually that person gave up, and rightfully so. Basically, I chose me, and I selfishly moved to Hawaii to chase a dream. I left her and my son behind, only to find myself in the most beautiful hell I've ever experienced in my life. Being depressed and suicidal and lonely in Hawaii is the most horrific contrast I think anybody could ever experience. While I was there, everybody thought that I was just living my best life when I very seldom did I ever feel any type of joy. The only time I felt any type of joy was when my son was there. And if we've had any conversation about this topic, you know that when he was there, I felt amazing. I felt light, and the colors were vibrant. The smells were amazing. The tastes, all the experiences were just amazing. And then when he left, like I will say forever, he stole my aloha, because when he left, it was dark before, but it was I was blind to any of the colors. I was deaf to any of the sounds, or the experiences were just without any type of joy. And the Hawaiians call white people haoles, and that means without breath. And that's exactly how I felt. I was very much a haole, and I knew that I had to go. And that's when I started to to chase joy. I knew that what I was chasing selfishly was not feasible. After all the suffering I had gone through in my life, God had given me a child, a beautifully healthy, charming, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful child. And I realized what I was doing and what I had to change. Carrying on with my notes, I did not find joy in the suffering that was Hawaii. I found a new shade of darkness. But I did find a desire to come back from it. Like I said, inspired by the joy that drives me to not reassemble the warped shell of my former self, but to assess the flaws and improve myself with the understanding that how I compose myself as a father not only dictates my joy in the present, in my future, but without question, it's the ink that blueprints my son's understanding of how a man conducts himself and how the world works, how you find joy. Because the example that was set for me, I know that that is not what I want for my son. I'm not saying you need to get beat as a child, or you don't need to get beat to want to be a great parent. You don't need to be told you should have been put in a basket with a brick and thrown into a river to understand the power of words and how they shape you. But for me, when I tell my son for the 400th time that day how much I adore and love him, I still have that voice inside my head. And when I kiss his head and embrace him, I still feel being thrown against the wall and being choked out. I wish I didn't, but I do. Which is super heavy. It's stifling, to be quite honest. I still ask in confusion why I had to experience all of that. I quickly fall into the answer so that you could be the best father that you can be, which I try all the time. I'm constantly reminded of who I do not want to be to my son. And you know, part of that's true. I value my time with my son in a way I don't think a whole lot of people who were not abused value their time. But I still wonder what love feels like without fear. Which again is the inspiration of who I am for my son. So, turning that suffering into joy, a joyous moment, those moments that compound. Just as suffering compounds, joy compounds, and that's something that being a father has proven to me. I will be demolishing these thoughts and rebuilding them my entire life, but my peace comes from moments seeing my success as a father. My son is my hero. What I mean by that is that he lives without the social fear that cripples me, because he can rely on the stability of love in his life. I can't help but admire his ability to walk towards friendships and conversation rather than fear judgment in those things. To an extent, I envy his comfort level in his own skin, but I ultimately admire him for loving himself. He will inevitably experience his own suffering in his life. I have no doubt about this. And I'll spend the rest of my life digesting my own suffering. But as far as this topic, I consciously use my suffering to create a loving environment for my son and myself to nurture a thriving relationship that I hope will inspire those who are privileged enough to meet my beautiful, 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 beautiful boy. And to wrap all this up, because of the last episode, like I said, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do in this podcast, did I want to do a podcast or a vlog on bass playing? I know that I'm a talented musician, but there are so many more out there who have so much more to offer and have the talent to express what they're doing and benefit people who are looking into becoming better bass players. I love hockey, but I'm terrible at it. I became a carpenter because I wanted to stay close to music, and to be 100% honest, I do not love carpentry at all. It's been something that pays the bills. I enjoyed guitar making and the friendships that I made, the experiences that I had, definitely. When we talk about that period of my life, I laugh harder than I ever have. I have some amazing memories that I credit to that era. But like I said, I'm a professional sufferer. I've been through a lot of it. And I think that even more than like giving somebody tips on how to lose weight or how to get stronger, I think that what I can offer are my experiences and my failures, to speak to the people who are suffering now and maybe remind them that there's something else. There's light. You can poke a hole in the box that you've put yourself in. You can experience joy. Or maybe I say something to somebody that inspires them to choose a different path, so it makes their suffering a little more tolerable, or helps them avoid that suffering altogether. So I think that is the point I'm trying to get across in this second episode here. I'd like to thank you very much for listening to this talking head. And I'm so happy that you stuck around, and I appreciate you. I love you. And just know that that you're a miracle and you are amazing. And I hope to see you next time. Have a great day.